Welcome back to the Print On Demand Playbook podcast. Today's episode is one I think you're all really going to enjoy because we're doing two things at once. We're going to be reviewing the predictions we made last year, and we're going to be pressure testing what we think 2026 might actually look like. But before we jump into it, I need to know, Maddy, how you doing?
I'm good, Rusty. I'm very good. It's crazy that we're almost at the end of 2025. I was thinking about this time a year ago when you and I were recording this episode, and man, the days have flown by. Though I think it's what they say, the days are long, the years are short. It's some long days this year, but
All
20
right. We put some mileage on too.
we did. We put some major miles on, and we're going to put even more miles on first half of next year. January, February, March are stacking up to be busy months for 2026.
I think it's going to be probably the first. I think it's pretty much similar to what we did this past year.
Yes.
I mean, it was multiple trips across the pond. We had some great vendor meetings. We did a lot of conferences. So it was a good first year. So it's our 1 year anniversary.
I know. What are we going to do to celebrate? You take me out to dinner?
We're gonna go to PPAI and then we're gonna divide
Pepper
and conquer
Stream.
another event. Yeah, it just starts all over again. So happy
I love
anniversary.
it.
So,
Happy anniversary, Rusty.
so why don't we kick off with our very first prediction if you want to do that, or if there's anything else you want to chat about before we get into it?
No, I think let's hop into predictions. It's crystal ball time, which was one of our favorites. So I actually think I'm going to do a little drum roll. I think you're starting out with this one. What are we hitting first? Growth.
Growth dynamics, because this kind of framed everything, in my opinion. Since really the post-COVID hangover really didn't quite disappear, but the overall industry started to sort itself out. So I'm gonna let you talk about that from there.
Yes. Well, what we expected and what we predicted was that we were going to have continued pressure on growth and print on demand, especially from slower consumer demand. We talked about this early in the year in episodes. I remember we did some interviews at the Cornette Connections event and folks were talking about this. So it was definitely a big prediction that we had. What actually happened, I think that was growth shifted. So we definitely saw pressure in the environment. Not everybody had a banner year for sure. But it was really just a shift of who was growing and who wasn't from everything that we've had conversations about. So growth shifted to more disciplined operators, and I think businesses without a clear niche or distribution advantage or really the operational rigor struggled this year. So we definitely got it right that the growth environment was going to be challenging. But I think it was more nuanced than that. And it was kind of a sorting year for the print on demand space to see really who had the chops to kind of battle it out in a little bit more of a challenging environment. But I think this trend's going to continue. I think 2026, we're on this maturity curve for POD, which is really great, I think, in many ways, but it definitely also poses new challenges to businesses in the space. So there's definitely opportunity to capture volumes, but there's probably going to be a continued widening between some more of the scaled and disciplined operators and then that wild west of people who are newer to the space. But what do you think? What's your hot take on growth in 2026, Rusty?
Yeah, I mean, when we were planning for this, we kind of put down some thoughts about and what was nice was we were very much aligned with what we saw coming for 2026. There wasn't anything we were both like, oh my gosh, we didn't really have any disagreements there. It was very much aligned. So what I put down for us was we had the input costs aren't going to be coming down. Labor is more expensive. Energy costs, they're still volatile. Lengths and freight continue. Those going to continue to fluctuate. But at the same time, paid media is going to become less efficient. I mean, we're seeing that already with, I think we're going to talk about when we get down into another section here, and that's going to hit POD, the print on demand e-commerce, much harder than I think people expect. But the reality is the easy money era for print on demand, it's over. And it's now we've really got to be disciplined, and that discipline is going to matter a lot more because technology and scale aren't just going to be those growth levers. They're really going to be kind of the survival tool for the industry. And the economics of this industry is going to force it to really start to grow up and all of us as businesses. You just can't just be like, you've got to be very disciplined with it. And I think that's going to be really, really key for a lot of these different companies. And the platforms that win, they're just not going to help produce more products. They're actually going to help all of us really understand in real time what we're actually and how we're making money. So those were some of the different things that I saw. Was there anything I missed? I know one thing I know, speed is still going to matter, but that predictability is going to be what's going to really, I think, separate when we move forward.
I completely agree. I think it's going to be more of the same in some senses, but with some different dynamics. And I'm, a heavy believer that technology and software choices are going to influence a lot of how businesses grow and survive in this new environment.
It's the heart of the industry.
It is. You said that once, right? It's like there's the brain and the nervous system, and then technology is the heart that keeps everything beating. And I completely agree. Well, let's flip into another theme that you and I have talked a lot about this year, M&A and consolidation. This was a big trend we spent a lot of time talking about in our predictions episode. I think you win because you predicted five major deals, if I remember correctly. And there's definitely been some big ones. So take us through what happened, what did we get right, and where are we going when it comes to consolidation.
Yeah, so what we predicted was more mergers and roll-ups, which you already hit on, but the scale would require more facility footprints and stronger balance sheets. So what happened, what we saw in 2025 is the Printify merger. It really kind of started, it really reshaped the way that the whole creator commerce economics were being seen. You had the SNS, Alpha Broder. They set obviously a new baseline for distributor scale expectations. Order My Gear, when we were at Printing United, I believe, down in Orlando, that kind of popped. So the Inctavo acquiring Order My Gear. Obviously, the Gildan acquiring Hanes was a big news. BDA acquired Harper and Scott on the promotional side. And then one of my favorite ones was this company called Taylor that bought Guten and Order Mesh. So that was
Never heard
probably
of
my
them.
favorite acquisition of the year.
I think that was my favorite acquisition of the year too, Rusty. And we, as we've talked about in previous episodes, truly would have not predicted that. That was not a secret prediction that you
Not
and
in
I
my bingo
had that
card.
came together this summer. So, a good mid-year surprise on the M&A front.
Yeah, so I definitely say we got the M&A right from the roll up standpoint and what we thought was going to come, and I think you're probably now going to talk about what we're going to see in 2026 and how we're predicting that. So you want to talk
Yeah,
about that?
I think we've got M&A continuing here, Rusty. I think it's just going to roll into the new year. We saw it really start with a vengeance last summer. It's continued into 2025, and I think there is more M&A and consolidation in 2026. I'm very interested to see what happens with a lot of the companies that have received private equity capital. There were, pretty major COVID era investments from some big PE firms. That's when Bregel put money into Printful. That's when I think around the time that Platinum really made a big investment into Mad Engine, Trilantic's been behind Monster Digital. You've got Apollo behind Shutterfly. That's just a few, right? So there's actually a lot of private equity space that's gone into the supply side in this world. And the traditional fund hold times for PE is, they target between 3 to 7 years of when they really want to see a return on that capital. So you've got investments that were made in 2021, where I'm sure there's boards and private equity owners looking for an exit. And I think the IPO environment is still not the friendliest. And so I would expect that we start to see some PE to PE deals, which is the SNS Alpha Broder deal. That was Little John into, I forget the name of the private equity fund or big fund outside of Chicago or New York and Chicago. But I think we're going to see a lot more of that, of private equity really driving M&A, especially on the large scale side. And then I think we'll continue to see more strategic activity to software deals, stuff like that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if there's any carve outs as well. So if people are trying to spin off areas of their business that just aren't producing the type of returns that they're looking for. So there could be some interesting little pickups. And I still think there's still a lot of debt out there that's going to fuel a
Yeah.
lot more of this. And this could be a good buy year for some folks that are trying to get into different categories or geographically desirable locations that they want to be in.
100%. I think there's going to be a catcher's mitt dynamic of some pretty interesting deal. I say that as like I could catch a baseball if you threw it at me right now, to go right over my head. I should be dodging it. Don't hit me. But I think that that's from an analogy perspective. I think there's going to be opportunities for players to sit back and kind of catch as businesses shake out on the debt side of the world. But I do think that there's some strategic opportunities, like you say, if companies are making divestitures or carve outs or kind of looking to get into new markets. So definitely a good time to be in corporate development if you're specializing in POD.
I would agree. So anybody that's out there, y'all want some insights, let us know. We like to, I pick their brains as well. So,
Yes.
all right, so let's move on to number three. The next one was B2B, my favorite. That kind of became my little like beating the drum this year. I just the B2B part of it. So last year we said B2B, the adoption for print on demand was going to come. It's going to continue to accelerate, and that enterprise buyers were going to push tech to catch up. And I believe we're getting there. So let's see how we did on this one, Maddie.
Yeah, I think that we nailed this one, and you nailed this one. You're definitely the B2B drummer boy. I gotta get you a drum to walk around and sing your B2B tune. But it was really a year of moving, I think, from exploration of print on demand to more execution and adoption. So that's what we predicted was going to happen, that corporate and enterprise buyers were going to lean into POD. We definitely saw more of that. And, I think that was driven by a number of different factors. Businesses looking for global programs, obviously overflow capacity, looking, to move beyond the traditional buy and hold inventory strategies, sustainability and reporting requirements. And then tech, I think both has driven that and also caught up to the trends that we're seeing in B2Bs. POD is no longer just e-commerce and dropship and creators like it was for a while. It's really, I think, become a supply chain strategy across all different types of segments, and the B2B and enterprise space is definitely one of them. But what do you think is going to happen next, Rusty? Get back on that B2B drum. What does it look like for 2026?
I think it's just going to accelerate. I've got a lot of thoughts on this one, but a lot of them really mirror what you actually, as you were going through, and I was kind of looking at my notes from what we predict. I mean, really, it's just a continual acceleration of this whole B2B. I was on a call with a very, very large supplier right before we recorded this, and that was something that just came. He was mentioning as well what they're hearing and seeing from their partners out there, RFPs, the B2B, the enterprise is really, really accelerating when it comes to print on demand. Everybody needs print on demand. They're not looking for that buy and hold, stick it in a warehouse. It's driving sustainability. It's hitting these scorecards. I just think we're going to see way more of it. I think the technology is going to be the single biggest component for how this is going to get done. I mean, we were just helping a partner in another one, and it's not just in the product. It's going to be in the assets. Are you able to integrate with the dams? It's becoming the centerpiece to be able to connect everything that a marketing ecosystem is going to need. So buyers, marketing, procurement, they're looking for this. So for all the promotional distributors, people out there that are supporting or trying to go after the enterprise B2B market, find the right technology stack and partners that are going to help you accomplish much greater company store platforms than what you might be using right now, because it is going to change drastically in 2026.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm seeing the same thing. You're passionate about B2B. I am passionate about the infrastructure and architecture behind the space from a connectivity perspective, because I think we'll get into this more, but it's so relevant for B2B: security, scalability of the technology stack, integrations across systems, and being able to be compatible with other enterprise level tooling, if that's ERPs, PIM and DAMs, CRMs, right? Having a full, event orchestrated system that can talk across order flow into the other parts of the stack is critical. Because what you can't have is an awesome print solution that's often a silo. An enterprise buyer is going to demand way more than that.
Doesn't matter how good you are at printing, if you can't get it through and they can't have the workflows, the approvals, they don't want it. It's just not going to work.
Yep, 100%.
All right, B2B, woo woo. Let's go on number four. Let's see, what was that one?
Number four, I think, is another drum beater that you and I have talked a lot about, and we'll be talking even about it more at PPAI, which is the convergence of print and promo. So take that one away, Rusty. What do we anticipate what actually happened this year?
Yeah, so that's actually what I think is interesting is it really kind of follows suit with going from the B2B enterprise, right? So having that converged B2B print and promo offering is going to be key. I thought that you saw that really in person. We saw that in person at Printing United with that convergence of print and promo. I thought that was a perfect example of how those two segments have come together. So what we anticipated was a continued alignment between print and promo. Yay, we nailed that. But what 2025 showed was that the promo industry really embraced on-demand models way more seriously than they have previously. The company stores, the hybrid inventory, hey, I'm going to have some inventory. I'm going to go POD. They started moving that, and they were adding more print into that. That made more traction happen. So we got that one right. I'm just going to say, look, we hit it. I mean, everything that we put out there on this one, I think really came true because it's laying the groundwork. I kind of look at 2025 as really laying the groundwork for all the fundamentals for moving into a converged environment through POD. It wasn't like a blowout year for it, but it really was an education year where people started getting very, very familiar with the technology, with the products, and how they'd be able to go to market. It really became that bridge between traditional print economics and modern e-commerce expectations. We got it right. I mean, the walls between print, promo, and e-commerce are effectively gone.
I want to put that on a big old billboard, Rusty. I'm sure we know people who could print it. The walls are gone between traditional print and promo, and it's the bridge between, POD is ultimately what's helping brands deliver. So I think you nailed it. We nailed it. And I think as we look toward next year, we're going to start to see this happen in other markets. I think the US market has been ahead of the curve in terms of that convergence between print and promo and these lines blurring between very traditional divisions of e-commerce and more traditional ways of transacting. That's all smashed together. I think we're going to start seeing that more in the UK and EU, and those are more global trends because I think generally Europe is a little bit behind from an evolution perspective than the US market. US market's just a bit more mature, and so we kind of see a little bit of that catch-up effect. And technology is just going to help accelerate that and just more company store selling motions where print and promo and e-commerce are bundled into one, and those traditional promo workflows I think are going to start to really feel the pressure. We've had some great interviews this year. We've talked to people in the promo space that are really helping to drive that digital adoption and technology adoption. I'm thinking about our conversation with Lisa. So I think we're going to see more of that. And the good news is there's a lot of tooling out there now to help businesses navigate this shift. Looking forward to seeing it come to fruition even more.
Absolutely. Now, this next one was one that I know you're very, really close to, is social commerce, because it really stayed real, but it did have some caveats. So
yes, I think so we predicted that TikTok Shop was going to be a driving force in POD and that social selling was going to start to outpace traditional e-commerce. I don't think that's happened yet. We'll talk about this more at the end of the episode of kind of where we were early. I think still bullish on the impact of social commerce that in terms of how it both is a great fit for POD and how it's shaping the conversation. But I think policy changes, the macroeconomic environment, the political environment definitely introduced some uncertainty. The administration in the US with everything with TikTok, I think that's clouded things a little bit. And I don't think the social commerce has necessarily been the print-on-demand powerhouse we expected it to be yet. This is another one I could talk about for all the reasons I think that's the case today, but we won't go into that. We can do a whole other episode and get some other experts on here. But it's definitely real, I think, on the social commerce side, and it's a good fit for POD, but it's early and there's still some challenges. So I expect to see social commerce and fast fashion still be a conversation as we think about POD in the future. And I think some of the big platforms are going to start to cater to print on demand in a more meaningful way. So they'll be friendlier to our markets. I think there will still continue to be pressure from a pricing perspective, just overall conversion in terms of how especially US domestic POD competes with some of what we see from overseas, but that'll shake itself out. But I do think we're going to have a lot more conversations about conversational commerce. So chat and AI and this conversion layer of what's happening with the overall AI ecosystem is definitely going to impact just shopping in general. I think it already has, but definitely print on demand. And the great news about our industry is that we are incredibly well suited to support short-lived, trend-driven programs that are designed to exist for weeks, not seasons. So I think all of it is really good news for POD. We're just still seeing the kind of front-end commerce experiences shake themselves out.
100% agree. I mean, social commerce, it didn't really live up. I think, and I'm curious about this because do you think that some of the SLAs that were put by TikTok Shop, right, that were just really, really hard for some of the different segments, do you think that kind of affected the growth there?
I do. I actually think it's a combination of factors. And I think that TikTok Shop is a great example. Their commerce experience within TikTok Shop is much more nuanced than I think a lot of people understand it. Even that I understand it, I'm still getting deep into that. There's all of these different ways to transact and sell product within TikTok Shop. And so it's a huge ecosystem, which isn't surprising because TikTok is such a powerful, large platform. So I think there's discoverability, I think there's SLA issues. I also think there's price and competitive issues of there's so much product that is sold through TikTok being an example, but just through social commerce channels that is not in the same ballpark of pricing that you see for like a US domestic product, something that's produced locally, because a lot of that's drop shipped from overseas where there's just different pricing dynamics. So I think that affects conversion rates on the POD side. I also think social commerce hasn't lent itself well to user personalization. And so especially within e-commerce, you see a lot of POD is, branded merch or product that's, set it and forget it and sell it. But there is a large part of the industry that is still customer driven personalization. I'm going to put my name on something or, edit it in some way. And social commerce isn't great for that. And I also think, you look at the categories that perform really well there, beauty and skincare products being a huge factor. I think that lends itself really well to video content. And if you look at the US versus other major markets where social commerce is far ahead of us, like China, for example, live streaming experiences for commerce is so much more of a thing there than it is here, I think, socially. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I think that's going to continue to change just as the demographics of the shoppers change. And people, the age groups mature, and people are more used to transacting in platforms like that.
Yeah. Conversational commerce, though, is the one that I'm really keeping my eye. I think that one, we're going to
Yes.
see definitely a much bigger clip into that this year, going into 2026. So let's talk about the predictions that we put out there for 2026 when it comes to this category. I would definitely think that these platforms are going to continue to cater to print on demand much more intentionally. They're going to roll out probably print on demand native selling tools like mock-ups, localized fulfillment options. Obviously, we all know that's going to be one that across the industry, not necessarily just with this, but localized fulfillment is going to be key, and automated compliance baked directly into the workflow. We saw some challenges with some of that this year already, so I think we're going to start to see the maturity of that when it comes to that automated compliance part when it comes to production. At the same time, let's go back to that conversational commerce. Chat paired with AI agents. Like I said, it's going to continue to evolve, really more from a support function into more of a true conversational layer. Something that that's at the most likely probably the second half of the year. We're going to see more of that. I don't know what happened to my voice. I just got choked up talking about it, but
You're so passionate.
I'm very passionate about this. It just won't answer the question. It's going to really help close that gap in the sales cycle. So, anyways, that's what I have for.
Well, I agree completely, Rusty. I think that there's so much opportunity and we're just going to continue to see it evolve. Another prediction you and I have talked about a lot this year is AI. And I say that like we're the only people talking about AI. Everybody's talking about AI. What do we predict for AI and POD? What's actually happened? Take us through it.
Yeah, I just learned about AI. I hadn't really heard anybody talking about it all year long until just recently. So it's
And when
the
I
number
texted you a
one
link
word.
to ChatGPT and said download this app,
What is this thing? This is
what is
crazy.
this?
What is this witchcraft? So what we predicted in 2025 related to AI was that it's going to be the biggest impact would be in just generative design, not just in generative design, but really customer service, production optimization, demand prediction, uh, QA, and waste reduction. Now, what really happened? AI assisted creativity became really more the table stakes when it comes to AI. Did we get what did we get right? I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's a big. Everybody's talking about it. I don't think we got anything wrong. I don't necessarily say we nailed it because people were dabbling with it, but there wasn't anything that just stood out like, oh my gosh, this was transformative to this business. There was a lot of people talking about it in tests, and from what I've seen, but correct me if I'm wrong, but do you know any companies that were just truly just went all in on AI in our
Not
industry,
in our
in our space?
space. No, I mean, I know companies that are using AI as internal productivity solutions. It's how we're using it. I mean, that's very common. I think I was at a workshop a couple weeks ago, and there was a poll about the professionals in the room, how we were all using AI, and it's pretty common, right? A lot of people use it for writing. That's the most common use of help me sound smarter in my email. I think creative and marketing is one of the, easiest places to start introducing AI. But I think everyone, is at different points of adoption internally. And I'm with you. I haven't seen any major industry changes yet as a result of AI. And who knows what's going to happen next? The technology is changing so rapidly that it seems likely that there will be changes as a result of AI more broadly, but we just don't know yet. And I think that prediction wise, I see it impacting search the most, which will definitely drive, where eyeballs are coming from. And we've had
Yo,
guests on the show. Yeah, AIO, or we talked to Trevor about that at Trevco. Oh, you're infecting my voice now. We're both
you're getting
getting
choked up
choked up
just like
about
that.
AI. How much I love product optimization and AI channels. But I do think that, like marketing and that function is probably the most heavily influenced, both in terms of AIO and then just internal productivity. But we'll probably start to see AI influencing more waste reduction and kind of bad demand signals, what not to print, if you will. I do think we're going to start to see more AI native tooling in tech platforms. I don't see that early in the year though, because I think that the technology is still so unpredictable in some ways that you're not going to see technology companies roll out like this huge AI suite of tools until they're really confident it's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, so I think about the last year is everybody was talking about design, right? Design, AI, design. It was like it was pretty crappy. The design, everything. I didn't see anybody go, "Wow, this is really just killing it." It's just you saw a
Yeah.
little bit on the video standpoint, but how does that affect our industry? Not really. Maybe from a marketer standpoint, I do think quoting estimating, because I've seen some tools recently. I actually made an investment in one where literally it's about quoting automation of tool, like actually getting pricing and everything. That was
Mm.
one that, and everybody I've shown it to has been like, whoa. So I see platforms like that taking off because I think that's a friction point within our industry of how you can get pricing and some of the internal workflows that make it more efficient. So we'll see how that takes off. Uh, Seven, our last. I think this might be our last one. Is this our last prediction for the? Yes, it
I think
is.
our seventh prediction. Yeah.
Yeah. So technology platforms. We said last year that software would become the real battleground. In 2025, it proved it. So you want to talk about how we did, what we predicted, and how we fared?
Yes, I do remember vividly sitting in that cave bar with you and Riga, and we were talking about technology in the space this year. So I think both of us are very bullish on technology. We saw that play out. You know, our our business becoming part of Taylor, I think, is a case point there. But it's not just us. Fulfill Engine has grown. Gelato Connect, Common SKU. There's so many other platforms out there across all of these different use cases now, which is super cool. There's a lot more choice available for brands just based off of the tech maturity and options than there used to be. Shopify as a commerce solution has continued to, they've cemented themselves as the go-to engine in a lot of ways. So I definitely think we got that right, that the future of POD is going to be much more driven by technology. Is the trend going to continue? Yes, though I think we're going to see this evolve. We talked about, I mean, I have strong views, as you know, on the double click, if you will, behind the user interfaces. I think there's a lot of surface level technology platforms that I've seen in this space that are super important. Business productivity tools, UIs, editors, all of that kind of workflow solutions on top. But I think you like go a layer deeper into the print on demand space. There's still a pretty major modernization initiative that we need to take on as an industry. You've got really old ERP systems, like systems that aren't talking to each other. There's just like a connectivity layer and data standards that need to be improved upon to, I think, really give technology the power that it can have, though we're seeing that change. So I think buyers are going to continue to evaluate integration and technology fluency as part of their overall decision flow. And we're going to see those kind of middleware solutions really, I think, make inroads in terms of driving connectivity. And, having long feature lists is not necessarily going to be the way that you win. It's definitely going to be more based off of adaptability, integrations, kind of enterprise level solutioning, that kind of stuff.
You nailed it, because that was my very first thing I actually had on there for going into 2026 is with the fact that, buyers are going to value integration depth over feature count. I mean, they just this like let's how are you going to make it easier for us to move and get into the market? Simply having a long list of features, it's not going to really matter if the platform can't connect cleanly. We know that firsthand. I mean, what we really solved for over the last 12 months or 18 months in our business was how do we make it easier for our buyers to say yes? How do we get to quick yeses or even quick no's? But at the end of the day, we want to move quickly and we want to be a good experience, because there's nothing worse than starting off a relationship with just being a brutal, tough integration process. So I also think how can you actually help with data reliability? That's going to be something people need to really solve for as well. The other one for 2026 from a prediction standpoint, tech platforms that fail to modernize their APIs and the underlying data models, they're going to just basically become irrelevant. They could have a most ass-kicking product catalog, but if you can't connect to them, it doesn't really matter, because
Yeah,
nobody's going to buy from you.
exactly. And it's infrastructure choices and technology choices that underpin those platforms that I also think we're going to see some more time in the sun. And it's happened in other industries that are a bit more advanced than POD. You start to see these RFPs and procurement processes come through, and security measures, SOC 2, just the underlying infrastructure and architecture comes front and center for how platforms have built up. And I think that there's some businesses in the space that have done that and have made really smart infrastructure decisions with their platforms. And there's others that have built up more organically over the course of time. And it's going to be difficult for those companies to keep pace, especially as we think about your favorite B2B. Large corporations like that just have a different standard of the technology platform that they want to work with. And so being set up to manage those requirements, it's a different ballgame than POD for SMBs and those small online seller platforms.
Absolutely. The flexibility, the agility, easy integrations, all that is, the ecosystem just continues to evolve. It's not going to stop. It's things are changing very, very rapidly. You got to have the tech stack that's going to be able to stay with you, run step in step. So I think that's what we're going to see for technology when it comes to 2026. So lots of interesting things. Everyone I've talked to feels like there's wind in our sails. And regardless of what's going to happen in the economy, I do think that B2B is still going to be spending, and as an industry, we're going to be we're in the catbird seat to really capitalize on that.
I agree. I'm excited for next year too. I think it's going to be a good year for the industry. There's obviously uncertainty always, as we saw this year. Trade policy, tariffs, geopolitical environment, antitrust, major shifts in elections, or all of those things that none of us, well, we can control in some ways, but we also can't in others. And so I think that there will always be that as we operate in this environment, because POD is so impacted by things like that. But so are a lot of industries. And I think that you're right, Rusty. There's great pockets of growth to explore, continuing to see new segments open up to what print on demand means. And I think it's ultimately print on demand just means something different going forward than it's meant in the past. It's printing what you need when you need it, which we've talked about, and that has a much broader application than how it's been thought of historically. So I think 2025, we look back, it wasn't like a breakout year for the industry. It was a foundational year. It was a sorting year. And I think the industry matured in a really really good way, actually. And so next year we have that foundation to build upon, and that's going to open up a world of possibilities.
Yeah, I think we finally broke out that hangover from post-COVID. I think
Yeah.
it took us a while. It was a bad hangover. It was really good,
Yeah.
and we felt
It's
great,
the
and then all
print
of a sudden, it's
industry.
like, you know, yeah, there was actually quite a few hangovers this year after every event. But yeah, I'm pumped for 2026. We've got a lot of different events. Great first year. Hope everybody follows suit with what we're talking about with these predictions. If you have any that y'all think that we've missed or want to debate, you can always share. Leave it in the comments. Send us a DM. We will gladly talk about it and also listen and learn from you, because look, what we're talking about, these are our lenses that we're seeing it from. We talk to a lot of folks out there, but at the end of the day, we are not able to talk to every single person. So these are our opinions only. But we feel pretty confident that I think we did a pretty good job last year with our predictions. So I give us A, not A plus. I think a solid A.
I was going to go A minus. I think I'm with you. But I think we not to pat ourselves on the back too much here, but I think we nailed it. We'll see what our report card is coming in next year. But yes, it's always fun, and we get a lot of inspiration from these episodes by talking to all of you. So I always try to listen as much as I talk, actually more than I talk, because God knows I can talk too much. So go to listen mode, and I know you do the same, Rusty, and that's what makes this interesting.
It is. And I think we would be remiss if we did not say we're very thankful for all of you. We hope all of you have a
Yes.
wonderful holiday season, wherever you celebrate, whatever you celebrate. If you're traveling, be safe, get relaxed, recharge, because 2026 is going to be here before we know it. And I think it's going to be awesome for everybody. So
Yes, I echo that. I wrote a poem for my team today that I recorded and sent to them on camera. Yes, it is that weird working for me. I do stuff like that, mostly for personal entertainment, but I was also testing some new software, so I wanted to see how it went. My
did you
teammate's the
rap
guinea
it?
pig.
Did you do the rap poem?
No, I'm not rapping. I would rap. I actually know the lyrics to a full rap song, but we're gonna get to that in another episode. But to that point, the ending of the poem, the theme was, I'm thankful for all of you. I don't want to hear from any of you until January, so don't call me. And I'm gonna go become one with my couch. So I think that's what I would say to everybody too. So thankful for the listeners and the team at Print Island and everybody who supported us, and looking forward to checking out and seeing everybody in 2026.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Thank you, Maddie, for an awesome first year. Thank you to all of our listeners, followers. You guys rock. Have a great Christmas, holiday, New Year's, whatever you do. Cheers.